Papua is a beautiful looking game with fantastic components. And in this game, you're going to be sending out a bunch of explorers to document the local flora and fauna in Papua New Guinea. And in terms of mechanisms, the game is fundamentally a worker placement game, but there are a couple of twists. Firstly, you're going to be rolling dice, which are going to help you determine where you can allocate your workers and how many of those workers you can allocate to each worker placement slot. The dice values of each worker placement slot change from round to round. They're not fixed. You actually get to allocate them on your turn when you're rolling your dice. So that adds a nice little bit of variety and a bit of luck and the excitement of rolling dice to traditional worker placement. You can actually mitigate the dice rolls as well, so you're not purely at the mercy of dice rolls. You can spend money to change dice values up and down by one, or you can actually re-roll. There are potential catastrophes you can roll. So each sixth side of the dice have a catastrophe icon, and if you roll that, in theory you have to lose a worker, but you can pay one money to mitigate that. And the core of the game really is going to be a bidding mechanism whereby each of the players has a sort of a shield that they'll be bidding behind to compete on expedition cards. And these cards really form the nucleus of the game because you need to set collect these cards to maximize your points at the end of the game. And so when you go to this the location that allows you to bid on those expedition cards, you'll then be making a blind bid, or a secret bid rather, behind your screen that you'll be using workers to bid. And it's a little bit similar to something like Isle of Skye, but instead of money you're going to be using workers. And then whoever wins the particular bids gets to keep the cards. And as I said, through various types of set collection, you can score big time points at the end of the game with these expedition cards. And overall, I think this is a pretty exciting and fun game. You know, I love chucking dice. It's great when there's a little bit of luck mitigation, but I also enjoy the kind of more strategic thought and planning that is necessary for a worker placement game. So having those two things combined is really interesting. The auctions, or the bids rather, are quite exciting as well, because you never really know what your fellow players are going to bid, and it's kind of exciting to win out and get the card you wanted. So there's a couple of different things in this game that make it quite interesting. There is luck, but there is aspects of mitigation. There's also a variable turn order. There's an energy track which shifts based on the number of workers that you put down. So for each worker you put down to a worker placement slot in a round, you have to expend one energy, but again, you can actually mitigate this by paying in food tokens. So there's a few different things going on here, and that does keep the gameplay relatively exciting and engaging. However, I think in terms of the downsides for this game for me is that it probably ran a little bit too long. The game isn't super complex, and at almost 2 hours of gameplay, the box actually says 75 minutes, and I think that's pretty accurate. It just felt a little bit too long for the kind of depth and scope of decision making that you can make in the game. And the only other thing that players might find a little off-putting is the theme. It's that colonial era, age of discovery theme that doesn't always work very well for everybody. And for the large part, I felt it was pasted on. There was some nice thematic links in terms of perhaps feeding your workers or paying for your workers when you lose energy, but besides that, you could have probably been almost anywhere. You could have been in space mining an asteroid. You could have been in California during the 1800s gold rush. But those are relatively minor gripes. Overall, this is a very solid and entertaining game. By all means, I highly recommend you check it out and find out more about it if this video has piqued your interest. And if you want to ask me any questions, just pop them below in the comments, or you can find me on Twitter at GameMinimalist. In the meantime, enjoy your gaming.